Hi, my name is Sabrina Williams, and I know that we need an audience, but unfortunately, the audience that I did have canceled on me, and I did not have a backup, and I don't have an audience, but I just really felt bad not turning anything in. I just didn't feel right not turning anything in, so I'm sorry, but I don't have an audience, but I still do have a speech. Even though I'm not going to get graded for it, I'm still going to turn this in. I just don't feel right. So again, my name is Sabrina Williams, and my speech is mental illness and gun violence. Do you sometimes have feelings that affect your way of life? How about your behavior? Have it changed in an unstable way? Mental illness affects thoughts, feelings, behaviors, and everyday interactions with the world or yourself. It's best to know and understand the signs and symptoms of mental illness so you could get help from many sources before it worsens. You're basically working on reversing the negativity that makes you unstable to possibly find common ground. Signs of mental illness are observed by a third party, whereas symptoms are felt by you, the sufferer, and not observable by others. Many misinterpretations of the mass shootings come from people with mental illness, and that's not completely true. Mass shootings by people with serious mental illness represent less than 1% of all yearly gun violence and homicides. I personally thought that when people go out shooting and everything, that they have something going on. But as I researched more, it kind of makes sense that we're so focused on the mental health issue that we're not focused on the other people that's out here who have issues also, but they're not shown until it's too late. They say people with mental illness should be considered dangerous. People with serious mental illness to violent crimes is only 3%. A smaller percentage of them are found to involve firearms. Another misinterpretation is that gun violence focuses on people with mental illness or with psychiatric diagnosis that can effectively prevent mass shootings. Laws intended to reduce gun violence that focus on a population representing less than 3% of all gun violence will be extremely low effectively and a waste of sacred resources. Perpetrators of mass shootings are unlikely to have a history of involuntary psychiatric hospitalization. So it's hard to capture those group of individuals because the laws are focusing on that 3% that we feel that are mentally ill and that are causing gun violence. So what does predict gun violence? Mental illness may not be a good predictor of gun violence, but there are many other factors that we all know increase the risk of firearm death in industry. Can someone take a guess? We all know guns and drugs do not mix whatsoever. Alcohol and substance abuse increase the risk of violent crimes by as much as 7 times more, even among people with no history in mental illness. Access to weapons is another known predictor of gun violence. Having a gun in a home commonly associated with the increased risk of firearm, homicide, and suicide in that home. Domestic abuse plays an important role in gun violence as well. Access to firearms is strongly associated with the death of many women in domestic violence situations by 500%. I would have never thought 500%, but I do know domestic violence and guns don't always end well with women. It doesn't. Gun violence can be reduced by instituting policies at the federal and state level that prohibit firearms possessions among individuals who display clear risk factors for violence. There's an estimate 3.5 million people with serious mental illnesses that are going without treatment every year. That is not good. Mental health disorders are much more strong linked to self-harm or suicide than violence against each other. According to author Vicky Mays and Jeffrey Swanson, approximately 6 of every 10 gun deaths in the United States are suicide, which points to failure in both mental health care systems and the firearm regulations. So basically, if we were to get our healthcare system together and have the right laws with these guns, not everybody will be able to get a gun just because they look healthy. Not everybody that look healthy is healthy up here. After the Newtown shooting, President Obama proposed adding another data source to the background check system. This was the source that he wanted to put on. Reports from the Social Security Administration of people who receive disability benefits through a third party because of mental impairments. According to a 2016 White House fact sheet, the rule would have affected 75,000 people. It was opposed by the National Rifle Association, which is the NRA, but also the American Civil Liberties Union, which said the rule violated civil rights, which is true. Some disability rights groups also argue against the rule on the bias that it draws stigma about mental illness, which is true. Mr. Trump signed a Congress resolution that expressed disapproval of the proposed rule in February 2017, 9 months before compliance would have been required. I feel that rule should have actually went through. We need more background check, like I said before, because we're so focused on the mental illness. We're not focused on the people who may look like me, like, oh, she looks regular, but not knowing that something's wrong. You know, she may have something wrong with her. Research shows that mental illness is deceptively common, while violence by people who are mentally ill is exceedingly rare. 1 in 5 Americans experience mental illness in a given year. Despite attempts to fight for stigmatization of mental illness, media coverage of general mental health have declined over time. Instead, they highlight stories that link mental illness and violence. There are definite steps to improving mental health care in the United States. One is strengthening the mental health safety net, making mental health care easily affordable to those who need it. But the real issue is that mental health system is not suited to task preventing gun violence, and it should not be expected to. It should be expected to help the mental to get better, not to basically, what are they basically saying? To basically harm them. Again, by strengthening mental and behavioral health sources, making care affordable and providers accessible, we can possibly improve the country's mental health care. To curb the epidemic of shooting death, we must take the correct steps as Americans and solve this problem that we do have, which is we're living in a country with nearly as many firearms as people. And even though we are getting a lot of people in this world, there's a lot more firearms. So just think about it. Think about all the children that are out here that's not old enough to have guns, but there's still enough guns out here that they can actually have one. So we definitely need to clean our streets up with these unnecessary guns that are out here, and we need to do more background checks to check on everyone, not just the mental health, just everyone, because people like me can actually have something going on with them. So thank you all for listening to my speech, and again, I apologize for not having an audience, but I just didn't feel right not turning anything in. So again, thank you, and good luck to you all for finals. Bye.